across organizations. The vacancy position does that, and this just reiterates the message so that during budget we can get to, you know, other issues without having to debate why we need a resource or not. So for me, it'll actually speed up the budget process. It'll get us to get the business done quickly while we look at the organization and see what we need to do in order to move forward. So that's for me.
Excuse me. I have Councillor Thompson, Councillor Perry.
I still hear the same issue. You know, the question is, you know, are we appropriately staffed? And so, you know, through you to Mr. Moyle, you know, how have you, in your previous roles, answered this question? Is it through an organizational review? You know, can we get that answer about are we appropriately staffed or not, and here are ways to move forward? Are there additional things that we can answer that question? Because at the end of the day, you know, that's what I'm hearing is part of the challenge here, is that, you know, there are concerns that we may be overstaffed, and some may say we're adequate or not, but it's not clear whether we have anything to be able to lay our hat on to say, yeah, we are. And so, in your experience, how best to tackle this issue?
Mr. Moyle.
Two ways. The first is through the organizational review, and that is to look at the services that are being provided, how you're providing the services, the number of people that you have in place to provide those services. That's one element. The second is benchmarking your performance against comparable municipalities. So you're a lower tier municipality in the region of York. The services that you provide are similar to what services are being provided in Newmarket, for example. So seeing your staff complement how you deliver your services and comparing those to comparable municipalities is another indicator to give you a sense as to whether you're on the right track or the wrong track. I had an opportunity just to look at the financial returns for the FIRs for Newmarket and for Aurora. So these are two municipalities. I can't think of a comparator that's so comparable. Same geography, adjacent municipalities, same levels of service. When you look at the MPMP element, which is the Municipal Performance Measurement Program, and you compare and contrast the two municipalities, I was pleasantly surprised to see that Aurora's cost to deliver services is frankly more efficient for the most part than the Newmarket's. As an example, the operating costs for roads per lane kilometer, which is a metric that the province uses, so how much money is spent to maintain roads. In Aurora, it's $3,650 per kilometer. Newmarket, it's $4,280. So essentially, there's a 14% lower cost to provide that service in Aurora. So what does that mean? Well, then the next step you do then is you drill down into how is the service being delivered compared to another municipality. What are they doing right? What are we doing right? What are they doing wrong? And how can we make improvements? So you do that for each service that you're providing, and you're constantly trying to do obviously better than your comparators. So again, the short answer is two ways: benchmarking, and the second is the org review. And you've already asked me to look at the resources you have, look at your structure, and give you some advice as to whether you have the right people in the right places doing the right jobs. And I will be doing that in the context of the org review. The implementation of that, I think, again, should be left to the new CAO, and the new CAO should obviously have his or her fingerprints on the final report as well, but I certainly will give you my advice before I leave.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, you know, and one of our directors may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when we did the service level review as well, one of the concerns that came out of that service level review was, I guess, the ratio of contract staff or contracted work versus full-time staff as well. And so is that something you'll also incorporate into your review of the organization and appropriate staffing levels?
Yes, I will. So that really speaks to how the services are being delivered. I found an interesting stat. It's in my notes here somewhere.
37%.
Here it is. So just a couple of other facts about how you deliver the services. So 37% of your operating budget, so 37% of the cost of your operating budget are services which are currently being contracted out by the town or working in partnership with the N6 municipalities. So again, I think council has made deliberate decisions in the past, and I'm sure in the future, about how you're delivering your service. So that percentage of your operating budget going to contracted services or partnership arrangements with others, I think Aurora and Newmarket, for example, partnering on the fire service is a good example of how you can deliver a service in a non-conventional way. You don't need two chiefs. You have one chief. You have that's a way of efficiently delivering a service. So you do that, and I think you can obviously do more of that as well. The other interesting little factoid that I noticed in looking at your financials, roughly 84% of your operating budget goes to mandatory services. So you have to be in the snowplow business. You have to maintain your roads. They're non-discretionary services that are required of a lower tier municipality because the Municipal Act identifies mandated services that you have to provide, and 16% of it goes to discretionary services. Also, I found this quite heartening. The town also covers 43% of the operating budget through user fees and rates. So there's been a policy of not always going to the taxpayer to increase taxes to provide services. You have a very high level of user fees and rates compared to other municipalities. So these are all indicators of financial health, and I think you're well on the way to do that. I've got some more details which I'll share with you at some later point, but when you compare the performance measures with Newmarket in particular, you're doing very well. And one last comment, with your indulgence. I think later on in the agenda there is a suggestion from Councillor Humphreys to have more plain-speaking, straightforward information about your budget and your financials. I think the people around this table, around the entire table, you know your budget, you know the specifics and the mechanics of the budget, and you talk about it a lot, which is good. But to the average person, they don't really understand tax ratios, tax rates, what you're getting for your tax dollars. So I think one of the gaps that I see is more of a straightforward communication plan once you approve your budget. So then you can communicate in very direct terms to the public. This is what you're getting for your tax dollar. These are how services are being delivered. And again, I think the motion that was in the package, I think makes complete sense. And that's something I think that as an organization we have to do, and do a much better job when the 2016 budget is being considered.
Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate all that information. And I know it's a hot topic, but I appreciate Councillor Maracas bringing it forward, because the residents are talking about it. We talk about it every budget time, so it's an important thing to shine a light on and talk about how we're going to address it, how we're going to show value within the organization for the staff we have, and what solutions we have going forward. My preference, though, is to work with our interim CAO. We've challenged him in a number of different ways to enhance the organization, and this is one way. Work with him for the organizational review, for the budget process, and then, if need be, have further conversations at that time. But I won't be supporting the motion as is.
Councillor Perry, then Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've gone around the table, and nobody's argument has been to date, I want to see us hire these people. I want to see us moving forward in that manner. I think we're all resolute in wanting to hold the line on taxes as much as possible, wherever possible, however possible. I think that's something we're all committed to, and whether you vote for or against this motion has no indication or bearing on that. I think we can all work towards ensuring that the line is held. All I'm saying is I want some more information, and that's what I've heard around the table from the councillors who aren't in favor of this, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be brief, but I did want to say that the reason I like always putting a notice of motion to staff is what we can learn from it. And Mr. Moyle, you've just given us benchmarks in a very succinct way, and I value that input from our staff. And it shows how important it is that, yes, we do want financial health, and let's do it the best way. Let's work together on doing it instead of making a one statement that may or may not accomplish what we want to do. So I think it's a good exercise what we've been through. I think we all want financial health. I do appreciate the stats that were brought out, and that's why I think it's so important that we do send involve our staff before we make decisions. And I think we're going to accomplish what we want to do. We're just going to do it a different way than what's been on the notice of motion here. And it's the best decision is to go back and do it the way it's been suggested. So I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor. Just a quick comment for me. Mr. Moyle and I were talking about the NPMP measurements this afternoon. And just a lot of people won't know what they are. We probably don't really know what they are either, quite frankly, because it's a very thick document. But it's a series of performance indicators. It's mandated by the provincial government, so all municipalities in Ontario prepare that. And it gives a fairly good way to be able to compare communities with each other, and especially the fact that we have Newmarket right next door. It is a pretty good comparator in terms of what we do. So it's a valuable document for council to be aware of and for council to use as we go forward. And I will simply echo Councillor Peary's comments that we're all interested in making sure that whatever we do is done in the most effective and efficient manner possible. And I will just reiterate that we have our option at budget time to not hire anyone. So we effectively have this already. Councillor Maracus, I suspect you might like to speak for a third time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, while those are great numbers about, comparing us to Newmarket and the fact that paving, we actually have we're $600 lower. I mean, that's great. I mean, maybe that just speaks to the fact that we're better at hiring contractors than Newmarket is. I don't know, maybe. I just, for me, it's what I said from the beginning. I just don't see why we can't hold the line. I see where this is going. I also, I'm going to trust and believe the rest of council that, and I'm going to hold them to the fact that there's a lot of them are saying that come budget time, they're not really looking to bring in new staff, a new complement. So with that being said, I'd be more than welcome to defer this to the budget process if I could get a seconder.
Second to the...
But this is a different deferral to the budget.
Madam Clerk?
I believe it is in order.
Thank you. Motion to defer then. I don't see any need to discuss the deferral. Let's call the vote on the deferral. All in favor of the deferral to budget? Contrary? Motion passes.
Recorded vote. Oh, tap.
It's a redundant motion. It's already being discussed at budget.
Did it pass?
Yeah, recorded vote, Madam Clerk.
On the deferral to budget, Councillor Abel?
No.
Councillor Gartner?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Mayor Daw?
Nope.
Councillor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Tom?
No.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Peary?
No.
The deferral fails as it was a tie.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Back to the main motion then, as stated. All in favor? We'll go for a recorded vote here. Madam Clerk.
On the main motion, Mayor Daw?
No.
Councillor Peary?
No.
Councillor Gartner,
Yes.
Councillor Maracas,
Yes.
Councillor Abel,
No?
Councillor Thompson,
No.
Councillor Humphreys,
Yes.
Councillor Tom.
No.
The motion fails, 3 in favor, 5 against.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move to item 12. And Councillor Gartner, you pulled that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did. Move as is.
Thank you. Second, please. Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Councillor Gartner, back to you.
Thank you. I just have some questions with respect, it's on page 4. It's, as far as I remember, the Stronach Recreation Complex is only 8 or 9 years old for you, to Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Mayor, it was built in 2006. It's 9 years old.
Councillor?
Thank you. So my question is, isn't it early for a pool liner? Through you, Mr. I don't understand why, maybe I'm wrong, but why the pool liner would need to be replaced at this point in time. Through to Mr. Downey?
Or Mr. Gallen, perhaps?
Mr. Gallen?
We've had several failures with the pool liner, and it was historically later on in the capital plan, but because of the grant money, we've moved it forward to this year. So if this grant gets approved of 1/3 costing, we'd like to see this happen earlier than later.
Councillor?
Follow up, are we going to be using a different company to provide the pool liner?
It would have to go to tender.
Well, I hope we pick a different company. As this pool liner hasn't worn very well. With respect to the improvement of Fleury Park washroom, I need some reminder about this. Did we do anything with respect to, Mr. Downey would know this. We were going to move this at one point, and I can't remember. Did we ever do anything to improve the Fleury Park washroom?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we had budgeted replacement of the Fleury Park washroom in 2010 and got approval from council to do so. However, the Conservation Authority would not approve the reconstruction of that structure in that location, so we did not proceed with the project. However, it did stay on the books, and we then applied for the grant money. So now that we've received grant money for this project, we are going through a renovation, which the Conservation Authority does approve, since we are not demolishing the structure, but rather renovating it.
Thank you. That's really good news, because I'm sure it is very well needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Maracas. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, you know what, I think it's great that the federal government's giving us money. I'm just looking at the rehabilitation of the armory and the fact that they're only giving us $91,000 when it's going to take $275 to repair the asbestos and all that, considering the fact that they gave it to us in this condition. I would have hoped that they would have ponied up a little bit more than that. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that one.
Other speakers to the motion, please. Councillor Abel, I did have you, sorry.
Thank you. I'd just comment, we could have got that, we should have addressed that armory when we negotiated the Queen's York Armory, but we could have got it for nothing at that time, I'm sure, because it was surplus. However, it's good that we're getting some of the money, and I did want to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Elliott. I recalled when this grant was brought to my attention back months ago, I brought it to Mr. Mayor and your attention. Is this that fund, that application that I had pointed out at that time?
Yeah. Mr. Elliott.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. This is the Canada 150 celebrations. There's two components to it. One is infrastructure. In part, I think this is because a number of municipalities are grappling with what to do with their 1967 centennial arenas that were built with federal money and now are collapsing and in great disrepair. So I think this is a gesture by the feds to come true and allow us to renovate and refurbish existing infrastructure. And there's a second component to the grant, and that is celebratory events and proceedings. And I believe that there's a report pending before council coming forward very shortly.
And thank you very much, because I've had more emails saying, are you aware? And it's good to see, and I want to thank staff, because it took more than one area of staff to have this on hand to identify and prepare and succeed in getting the funding. So I know the town still has to put something in. However, we would have to put this work in one way or another. Some of this is initiatives, some of it is needed repair. So I just want to thank you very much for following through. And I'll look forward to the further one for the celebratorial event that we've got pending as well. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Harvers?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to thank staff again for working through the grants. We've got a third covered through the grants of all the overall costs. So it's just great. It's significant, and I appreciate you taking the time and getting everything we could from these grant opportunities. So thanks very much.
Mr. Elliott?
I think having the 10-year capital plan really helps. When we were going through, I was looking for projects that could be advanced. The pool was a perfect one. We knew that the liner was having troubles. Facilities knew the liner was having troubles, and yet there it was sitting in our 10-year capital plan, sitting in 2024. And so we've advanced that. We're picking up $1/3 and a tribute to not just my own staff, but the staff in all of the departments that are putting this stuff together.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Any other comments or questions on this item? Well done, staff. All in favor, please. Contrary? That is carried. I believe that finishes those items, or the specific items for discussion. Councillor Abel, may I pass the chair to you, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Dahl. And you are putting a motion forward?
Yes, sir.
I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Perry, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I don't think I need to go through it. We have, in our procedural bylaw, we are, I was going to say obligated, maybe that's not the right word, but we are slated to review our procedural bylaw in the second year, and I thought that it would be appropriate to bring it forward as we've been going through with our new clerk, Mr. Hike. We've been making some comments as to how we might be able to clean up some things. So Mr. Hike has been working on that, and I think it might be worthwhile just to bring it forward a bit more, a bit earlier, pardon me, than what we would originally do. That's all.
Thank you, Mayor Dow. Are there any comments, questions? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, when we were first elected, Councillor Thompson and myself, Councillor Abel, all went down for a session that AMO was putting on. I believe it was either Nigel Belchamber or Fred Dean who was doing the session. I found it immensely beneficial to me as we move forward. Once we put something in place, maybe as we're putting something in place, it might make sense to invite them down and give all of us around the table a refresher course. You know, make sure that we're aware what proper procedure is. I always think that we can do better. I think we can be a little bit more efficient. We can move, you know, in the right direction. And I think that's something, you know, that we should definitely be looking at. I'm not sure what the cost implications are. I'll bring it up under new business, but I just wanted to thank Mr. Mayor for bringing this forward because I think it's needed, and I think on a whole, you know, we can be more efficient, and I think we should be striving to be a better council as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. I was thinking that perhaps Councillor Perry was going to go where I was going to go, but I also believe we actually did invite them into our chambers, and they did present to us last term as well. But, you know, at that session, I remember, be it Fred Dean or Nigel Belchamber, saying that the procedural bylaw is really council's procedural bylaw. It is our guideline, our rules by which to govern our meeting. And so when I read the final, further therefore be it resolved, it really talks about staff recommendations. So I guess my question through you to the mayor is, where does council have an opportunity to make recommendations or revisions to that procedural bylaw, since really it's supposed to be a reflection of our views more so than staff's views?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Thompson, council always has the final word on anything that we do. So it will come back to council. Mr. Hike is a procedural, he's far more expert in procedural matters than I am. So I certainly take his recommendations in terms of procedure, but indeed, as you brought back last term, the tied motion reconsideration, it's always open to council to tweak it as we see fit for ourselves. So that will definitely be there, because obviously we all have some concepts as to how we see it going. And you're right, it is our procedural bylaw.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. When we went through this last term, it involved a number of consecutive meetings and considerable time. And I think one of the challenges we had is when we saw it, we started at each individual meeting, trying to alter or change certain things. And I guess perhaps the suggestion or where I was going was that I think, probably in advance of the workshop, there might be opportunities for councils to bring forward those recommendations, perhaps put them in a list of things that they'd like to see changed or something along those lines, because, right now this is following the same process or procedure we went through the first time, and because of the lengthy time that it took us to go through it, I think there's some lessons to be learned in how to, expedite the process or at least make it more efficient, because, I think all of us were quite surprised at the amount of hours that were put into us reviewing it time after time. And so I think that there needs to be some consideration or thought given to whatever changes or suggestions members of council would like to see brought forward for the procedural bylaw in advance, rather than doing it on the fly.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, maybe there's an opportunity for an invitation for council members as Mr. Hite prepares it.
With your permission, Mr. Chair, I will have that conversation with Mr. Hike tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing this forward. Perfect timing. And I do believe that we have an opportunity. Sorry, before I begin, I want to say many of my comments were said by the previous councillors. Appreciate that. But relative to moving forward, perhaps with some of the suggestions, is more of an administration type approach, where I think we had, it sounds a little, minuscule right now, but the tracking mechanism wasn't turned on with any very change, so we were going back and forth. So I think administratively, if we can get tracking added right away, so the changes are documented, we could easily reflect them. And I do appreciate that the last clause does say that when staff sends them, that I take that as a council has an opportunity to amend the procedural bylaw. So absolutely appreciate the clarification that it is ours, our bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. And of course, it is the council's bylaw, but it is how we conduct business on behalf of the public. Is this going to be a meeting that's open to the public?
All our meetings are.
Sometimes the word workshop implies not. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Madam Clerk. I will pass the chair back to Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Next motion, Councillor Humphreys.
I can move it forward.
Councillor Tom seconding. Councillor, back to you, Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we alluded to this. It's quite a wordy motion. I want to thank staff for helping put some of my thoughts in very much more of an eloquent fashion than I would have. But the bottom line for this is basically what we talked about a little bit previously, is just to be able to articulate to the residents our overall financial health for the town of Aurora. And I know I've ran this by a couple of times through Councillor Thompson, through the Financial Committee. I think it's a great opportunity for us to sit back and present something to the residents that they can actually, very basically say, we've got this much money in the bank, our investments are making this much money, we owe this much, we're looking pretty good. And I think some of the discussions we talked about earlier, just having that general understanding, and we can actually, I really appreciate the comments made earlier by Mr. Moyle, just how good we really are doing. And I think if we have that, I know that we have that out there in very plain wording that we can all relate to at our household bills and our banking, that I think the residents will understand where we are. And when we do make decisions to invest in building new facilities or would like to hire a few more staff resources for good reason, that we say, we're doing good. We're in good shape. We have to move forward. So really, this is, and I want to thank Mr. Elliott and his staff. I did have some discussions previously with them as well, and they understood where I was coming from and supported that as well. So I'm looking forward to this. I do see it as an annual type report. At the end of it, maybe sort of a pamphlet, again, very, very easy to understand and go through. I just saw the libraries actually today that they sent out, and I thought that was a really good format as well. So just, I again, don't want to read it through, but it does highlight all the guidelines around presenting this information, and I'm looking forward to seeing the report.
Councillor Perry, Councillor Thompson.
I can tell you, Councillor Humphreys, that I will support this. When you told me you were thinking about writing this motion, I thought it was a great motion. I think it's the right direction. And it's not that when we talk around the council table, it's in terms that members of the public, don't understand. But I think it's a time issue, and most residents don't have the time to go through our budgets line by line like we do. And I think having something that's clear and concise for the residents to look at, to understand, and it doesn't take 2 or 3 weeks to go through everything. I think it's greatly beneficial. So I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to supporting this.
Councillor Thompson.
Certainly appreciate Councillor Humphreys bringing it forward and formalizing it. I know we've discussed it in the past at budget times, talking about the need to be able to communicate well to the residents about how their money is being spent and the value that they are getting out of the town. And I know I've spoken with Mr. Elliott and in terms of trying to do some of the Finance Advisory Committee, or and happy to see it come straight to GC and deal with it there. We've communicated it in the past. We've seen other reports that other municipalities have done, and I know for myself I've been a little envious because I thought that there are certain municipalities out there that have done a phenomenal job at communicating that value to the residents. It's their money, and so they should have a clear and easy understanding of the value that they're getting for their tax dollars. It's that simple, and I find that it's been a challenge in the past. So fully supportive of this, and looking forward to seeing how we are going to communicate that to the residents.
Councillor Abel, Councillor Gardner.
I'm just going to say much the same. I think it's a great idea. I thank Councillor Humphreys for bringing it forward. I'm in full support of seeing this go to staff and coming back for a general committee. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner. Thank you, Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much. I don't know why nobody thought of this earlier. And I like clear, concise, and meaningful.
Any other comments? All in favor? Contrary? It's carried. Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. The regional report, would someone care to put that on the floor? It seems like forever ago. Councillors Maracas and Gardner. And the Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to kind of make a few comments about the sign bylaw, actually, that the region has implemented.
I'm sorry, the sign bylaw? Yep.
Yeah. I think it's great. It's a little bit of deja vu for me because it seems like it's something that we saw earlier in this term that I kind of put forward. So I guess the new guy does know how to write some policy, so I'll just throw that in. I just want to make mention that we have noticed some signs out on the municipal areas for the federal election. So just wanted to let residents know that they are allowed to be there since we haven't passed anything. It's unfortunate that we didn't do it. We wouldn't be where we are right now, but I'm glad to see this, and I can't wait till it's fully implemented at the region and at the municipal level.
Councillor Thompson, I believe you had your hand up. Councillor Abel, Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I appreciate that the regional report is on here and gives us a sense of the business that was conducted at the region, but most often it's after the fact. And I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to add to these regional reports to provide council with a bit of a snapshot of some of the more substantive or significant issues coming forward so that we can work with you on some of the issues or concerns we might have? I guess where I'm going with this is that, so we've had a considerable conversation around, needing another interchange at the 404 in St. John's, and it's great that we're taking a stance now and being reactive to it. But, maybe there was an opportunity if we knew that some of these things were coming up ahead of time to, communicate our thoughts through to you and have you take a position at the region on certain issues that may be of interest to those around the table. And so I just think that maybe there's an opportunity to add to this report, not just the highlights of what's happened, but some of the more substantive issues that are coming forward so that members of council can communicate through you about their thoughts or concerns on specific issues.
Good question. I don't know if, I doubt, quite frankly, that the region would do that in terms of, it's council highlights, so that's what happened at council meetings. We do get multiple copies of council agendas, regional council agendas, and there's a council, a copy for council. I got a copy, there's a copy for council as well. So certainly, and they're there for anybody to look into. I'm not sure how we could effectively, as I go through, obviously I go through the agendas before we go there. We meet 3 times a month. We meet, we have a committee of the whole, the first and second Thursdays of the month, and then the council meeting on the third Thursday. And all those agendas do come in the week, very similar to here, they come in the week before. So they are all there. I'm not really sure at this point. It probably bears some further discussion, maybe with 2 or 3 of us, as to how to best handle that. Because it's going to change. Obviously, they're dealing with 9 municipalities, obviously. So it would change, from an Aurora, even Aurora Newmarket perspective. There would be differences as to what would be, highlight for us or potential issue for us versus the potential issue for Newmarket, which would be substantially different from Markham or Vaughan. So I'm not really sure how that could be handled. So if you've got some suggestions, I'd love to sit down with you and we could have that discussion.
Appreciate you taking it under advisement. I think I was thinking of you supplementing the report as opposed to the region doing it. Perhaps of issues that are coming forward at a later date that are specific to Aurora, or you think would be of concern to all members of council, so that we could, communicate to you about them. But happy to chat with you about it offline.
Might have to hire someone to help. Just a joke. Councillor Abel, Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't normally comment on the York region, but I've noticed this council is getting a little more involved, so I'll take an opportunity. York region makes progress on 10-year housing plan, and it's a 4-point. And it speaks to exactly what I've always been advocating, and I know several members here do support in principle, that the increase in rental housing supply, support of home ownership, affordability, and strengthening the homelessness and housing stability system. How does Aurora fit in that picture? Because I don't see the connect how we can do it in Aurora. And I don't want you to go into detail, but I just thought if you could give some sort of an indication.
We, just before Mr. Garvey left, he and I were having discussions with Community and Social Services as to how to get Aurora back on the map for additional community housing. So those discussions are going on. So as an example, there's a building going up in Newmarket at Davis, and I forget the cross street. But there's a building going up there. There is a brand new building that's close to being finished down in Richmond Hill that I had an opportunity to visit a couple of weeks ago, which is going to be quite the place. All sorts of different type of transitional housing in that building. So we've been having those discussions with Community and Social Services. Nothing has come to fruition yet. And as that moves forward, I'll certainly be happy to keep council informed as to how we're making out.
And just a quick question.
Yeah.
Does the region have the land ownership, or does the municipality provide land, and do they work together? Is
Yes,
that the first step, more or less?
I think the simple answer there is they work together to get the most effective solution.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to be brief. On page 5 of the regional report, I've spoken to this before. It outlines the York Region standardizes measuring, monitoring, and reporting of new affordable housing. And it outlines that what the upper limit of home prices that are considered affordable by the region is $336,000, and the range is from that to $443,000. And then it goes on to cite statistics about the regional official plan and the percentage of new housing that's affordable and so on. My comment is this: regular working people and young people in this town, $443,000 for a new house is not affordable. I don't consider that affordable. And so I think it's interesting that the region's using that as its statistic for monitoring that. And that's just a comment. I think that perhaps I should look further into the policies and understand how they've come to that number. But I think regular working people in Aurora would find that hard to believe that as a new house that they're going to purchase, that $443,000 is what the region considers affordable. And so that's all I'll say about that.
And I think when you brought this up before, I did mention that that's a figure that actually comes from CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And I don't disagree with you, because when this first came to my attention, I guess probably my second year in, I came to the stunning conclusion that as mayor of the town of Aurora, I would not qualify to buy a house. So it was kind of interesting.
Where does the council fit in?
You know, we'd all be bunking together. It's certainly it's a contradiction. I completely agree with you, Councillor Perry.
I would only add to that even finding a semi-detached or townhome for $440,000 is a tough thing to find in Aurora. They're all much more expensive than that as well. So.
Yes. So that prospect of my children living in the basement goes on forever. Any other comments on the regional report? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a follow-up to all the comments about housing, I'm pleased to see that the region is going to partner with a program called 360-degree support services for kids. Yep. And there's going to be a very interesting housing project and community hub in Richmond Hill. Now, it's not Aurora, but it is in Richmond Hill, and there's going to be 202-unit apartment building. And in that, there's going to be a youth drop-in and a 14 emergency bed and 11 transitional beds for youth. So I think that's something the region has been lacking, and it just all adds into the housing mix. I'm also pleased to see that the province is going to look at a Made in Ontario initiative for blue box recycling, which means the manufacturers are going to have to support the costs of blue boxes, the support of recycling that is involved in blue boxes, and therefore they're maybe going to look at their packaging a little bit closer, which is really important if you look at some of the over-packaging. York Region got recertification for its forests. Mr. Mayor, that's really great. It means that we're managing our forests well. And the other thing, I don't know if any residents are listening, and I don't know if we want to put this on our notice board, but the initiative that's called, has to do with cell phones. It's called Pledge to Ignore, to try and get people off their cell phones. And they've actually raised the penalty quite a lot. It can go up to $1,000. I think that's a great initiative for any of us that use our cell phones. While driving and perhaps at council meetings. That's it for me.
Any other comments on the regional report? All in favor? Contrary, that's carried. New business general information. Sorry, I thought that was kind of cute, actually. Councillor Perry.
Based on the discussions earlier, I don't think it needs a formal motion, but just could we look into pricing on what it would cost to bring in Mr. Dean for a 4 or 5 hour session, just that we're all apprised. You know, if memory serves, he was only here for a very short time at the start of the last term. I wouldn't mind having the full intensive procedure. Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I just want to mention, and all I'll do is mention it, that I would like to see sometime in the near future the report about the Canada 150 committee. I have constituents and groups in town that are looking to get involved, and they want to coordinate with the town, and we still haven't seen that report for the striking of that committee. So I just want to make that comment, and hopefully it gets brought back to council soon.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed on tonight's agenda, item 7 was the naming of Tim Jones Trail was approved on consensus, and I understand that the date for officially stating that is in October. Do we have an actual date in mind, and will there be notification and celebrations? And I love the trail selection. It attaches to the Newmarket Trail on the Tom Taylor side. So I just wondered
Mr. Downey, is there a date? Notification absolutely will happen.
To you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's no date, and yes, notification will take place.
I'm looking forward to that.
We will notify you when there's a date.
Right now, we're notifying you that there is no date.
That's perfect, but it will be in October, right?
Yeah. Councillor Eva.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, and I haven't been to the AFLC, but I see the manager is here. Have the fans been installed?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they have.
Excellent, excellent. So that must make a big difference with the blinds. I noticed the climate's much improved. And I had asked the director about the sign bylaw. It's pending, and my comment was that council would have some opportunity to get involved. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if I could ask for some sort of update on that.
Ms. Van Leeuwen, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the sign bylaw review is complete, and we have a draft bylaw that's currently in legal for review. I will be coming forward in the very near future to provide council with an overview of the changes and the objectives of the review. That will also include an implementation and transition strategy going forward. And after I come forward and present that to council, we would like to put the draft review forward to EDAC for comments, as well as the chamber and council and any public that has an interest in providing comments. And then we will come back, review those comments, and come forward with the bylaw.
Thank you. So if I can just surmise, so for the public, the next opportunity would be through a committee, and we'll announce those committees that they'd be able to come forward with their suggestions, ideas, concerns.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And lastly, through you, Mr. Mayor, councillor expense reports are biannually. I think last term we had them quarterly, but I've looked on the town website, and there's nothing from 2015 that I found. I found 2014. I was wondering if anything pending was coming. I do recall a budget that we cut the allowable expenses to council at the time. I was just wanting a review for that. Thank you.
Mr. Elliott.
I'll look into it and get those posted as quickly as we can.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I'm not sure whether the rest of council have received emails regarding the use of Imajet with the Emerald Ash Borer or not, but there seems to be some concern by some residents with regards to it, and I've gotten some fairly technical information about it from some residents, referring to a particular professor at one of the universities and so forth, and so I'm hoping that perhaps Mr. Downey has seen some of that information, or at least some of the concerns have been expressed to him, and perhaps he can provide some comment on the use of the product and whether or not this new information is cause for any concern from his perspective.
Mr. Downey, please.
To you, Mr. Mayor, the chemical that is a concern is a neonicotinoid. It's called a neonicotinoid, and it's quite hazardous, primarily to honeybees. That's the major concern. So it affects the pollinators, and we have researched the product. The product is injected into the tree, so it is not available for the bee population or to affect the bee population. Ash trees are not a source of pollination for bees, so we believe that the risk is essentially nothing to honeybee population, and we have been in contact with the provider of the chemical. As you recall, at the last council meeting, I talked about a meeting that was being held at August the 20th at the region with regards to all the other municipalities that are involved in the treatment of the emerald ash borer, all municipalities had an opportunity to hear a presentation by the providers of triazine, which was the previous chemical that was used by Aurora for the treatment of the emerald ash borer, and as well as the providers of Imajet. The treatment that we recommended to council was to change from triazine to Imajet for a couple of reasons. It's more effective in dealing with the emerald ash borer. It is of lower cost, and the treatment cycle is similar to that of triazine. In that triazine is now being recommended to be injected on a yearly basis as opposed to every other year. So that increases the cost of that product substantially, or of that treatment substantially. We have researched the use of Imajet. It is not being heavily used within Canada, however it is being used in the States. As I said, it is a hazardous chemical if sprayed exterior. However, interior injections are not of concern. We've also had an opportunity to have a roundtable discussion with the other municipalities that are using treatments. Most of the municipalities have chosen not to go with any treatments at all. Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham, no treatment. Regional municipality, no treatment. King, no treatment. Newmarket and ourselves are the only two who entered into a treatment program fairly early in the process. East Gwillimbury has also entered into a program, but at a later date, so they've also already suffered a lot of loss of their ash trees. I'm not familiar with the program that Georgina or Richard Stovall uses, but we have done, I believe, sufficient research to feel comfortable with making the recommendations to council, and we have council direction to use that chemical. That's the best update I can give you at this point.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Just a quick follow-up. Is there any opportunity for us to provide some of that additional information to the public by perhaps putting it on our website or something along those lines to address any of the concerns being raised out there?
Mr. Downey?
Certainly, I can talk to our communications department and find out what can be done. We can provide information to them that they can then post in the appropriate location within the website. But happy to do it. We can get information from the provider as well, and they can contact the provider as well if they wish and get further information.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. Following up on that, I'm still uncomfortable with the neonics, and the reason is because there's been a lot of research and proof that corn seed was injected with neonics, and so it is that the chemical was enclosed in the corn seed, and still there's evidence on the corn stalks that the chemical is present. So it's it may or may not prove true that because we're ejecting it into the tree trunk that it doesn't get at all into the environment. My feeling is that for $140,000 a year, and we have very environmentally savvy community, that we err on the side of prudent avoidance, I think is the correct term, and we don't use it. And we stay with the triazine, and you know, it's one of those things. It may just be too early to tell what damage it could do to the environment, but it certainly has traveled from a coated seed to the leaves of the corn plant, and that is where the problem lies with the bees. I looked at the minutes. The minutes say that I think Mr. Downey, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, I think it says that we will add that, we will add neonic to our line of defense, but it is not the defense of choice. It is one of two defenses that we have. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we had identified Imajet as a chemical that we could use in order to treat the emerald borer. It is the chemical that we are recommending and we have moved forward with. If council wishes us to stop that, that's certainly up to council and can give us direction in order to not go forward with that chemical any further. However, it is not our recommendation. I might add, however, with regards to corn, that's an issue with when you spray neonicotinoids. That's the only way you can spray a crop, and that's where the treatment then gets into affecting the bee population. It's very popular chemical also in soybean, but this, as I say, is injected. It is never at any point airborne.
Thank you. My recommendation is that we don't use it, and I have done my research, and the chemical is put into the seed, the corn seed, and it still manages to get to the stalks. The other thing I wanted to say, and I didn't catch it on the regional report. Apparently, we're going to have to pay $250 if we want to run in the next election, and we want to have signs on regional roads. Is that true, Mr. Mayor?
It certainly is.
Can you please do something about that?
I'm sorry?
I guess you can't do anything about that. See, that's the kind of thing that I would like to know ahead of time, so I could go up to the region and voice my displeasure. So it's voiced. I would ask council, due to the Jewish high holidays in September, I would ask that council defer the tree protection bylaw that's coming to, we have a motion that says it's coming to council in September, and also the back door of the leisure complex might be coming to council in September. So I would like to make a motion that council defers those two items until the beginning of October, if I.
Do we need a motion on that, Madam Clerk, or can we just be?
It would be cleaner with a motion.
Okay. Councillor Humphrey seconding it. Comments or questions on that?
Thank you very much.
Councillor Peary.
Just to get clarification, when is the holiday?
The holiday goes from the eve of the 13th and finishes the eve of the 24th, although the 24th evening is usually breaking of the fast. And I really don't want to come to a council meeting. I'd rather eat, excuse me. No, but it is a 10-day span, so it would be, I would have to miss 2 meetings in there, and therefore I wouldn't have a full cycle of either of the cycles.
Is there any way we can make sure that the reports come to us on the 8th?
The 8th of September?
Yeah.
If they come on the 8th of September, it's GC. I'll be here for.
We have a meeting on the 1st. Or do we not?
We don't.
No. Okay. That's fine.
And as the community is also becoming more diverse, I think that it would be appropriate.
I'm just going to, we'll just go back to the motion. I think you've got, okay.
Thank you.
All in favor? Contrary? It's carried. Councillor Maracus, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, there was
We received a memo of a resolution from the City of Barrie back in November of 2014, and it was to do with the Thane smelter. They had a resolution that the municipalities and counties bordering Lake Simcoe demand that both the provincial and federal governments take action to clean up the former Thane smelter site. I just figured I'd ask you, since you're our regional representative and you're also the chair of Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, has anything been done to date in regards to that?
Yes, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. I know that that goes back a while. It goes back a number of months. The province, I'm going to, rather than stumble over this, I will find out exactly what happened, because the province. Me? Yeah, I can, Thursday. So I will get some information and inform council.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, because the Thane smelter is certainly an issue.
Yeah, definitely. Mr. Simonoskis is not here. I was actually going to bring up the left-hand turn restrictions at Yonge and Wellington, and the fact that we passed a resolution to implement a trial period, and nothing's happened yet, so I just wanted to ask about that, but I'll wait till Mr. Simonoskis get back. And then my last thing is I had met with a resident at the corner of Tyler Street and Mill Street. It's a little bit dangerous, actually, when you look at it. Maybe if staff can go look at it. It's on Mill Street, when you're coming down the hill, there's no guardrail. They've had instances where people park there, or they slide, and they've actually slid into their house. So maybe we could look at possibly, maybe the guardrail needs to be extended. They've also had issues with, from the site of the Colliers Leather demolition, where the trucks have run over the corner of their lot, and there's like damage to their grass and stuff, and no one's fixed it yet. And I mean, it's a senior couple, and they have difficulties cutting the grass, so maybe if we can look into possibly.
Has that not been addressed? Because I know.
No, it has not been addressed. I was just there today, and that hasn't been addressed. So
I know that there was conversations going on.
No, definitely. So I just thought I'd bring that up, because it was an issue that I went and saw today, and I just think there's a little bit of a safety issue with the guardrail. So,
Mr. Gallen, would you make a note of that, please? Thank you. Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just a quick follow-up to Ms. Van Leeuwen. The pending signed bylaw, could you give us an indication when that would be going to committee?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm planning on bringing a report forward to committee either the second cycle of September or the first cycle in October.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Thompson.
Speaking of safety issues, just to bring up once again the off-ramp at Aurora Side Road, Wellington Street. Again, the fact that the construction is going on and you're only allowed one turn lane to left, it continues to be an issue and raises safety issues because nobody's really adhering to it. You're still getting two cars turning left into one lane, and especially now a lot of the dump trucks are choosing to ignore it. And just even today on the way home, there was a number of close calls. And so, you know, I know it's been raised before. There's been some comments about maybe raising the issue to YRP, getting somebody to look at it, but you know, it's an accident waiting to happen. And so, you know, I think we do have a responsibility to look into it and address it in some form or manner. Because
are there particularly sensitive times that you've seen?
Rush hour.
Anytime.
Anytime is.
I mean, primarily rush hour. I mean, with only one left-hand turn lane, essentially everybody is backed up pretty well to the 404. And some people choose to ignore it, and it's creating that bottleneck. And when you have a dump truck versus a car, you can imagine who's going to win and who's going to lose.
Ms. Van Leeuwen, could you make a note to bring that up with YRP? Or, well, that would come under, comes under bylaw, doesn't it? Traffic enforcement?
Traffic enforcement is YRP.
Right.
Traffic safety falls under IES. Certainly we can make contact with YRP.
Thank you. Someone will make a note and do that. Anything else? Confirming bylaw, please. Councillor Peary? Councillor Tom? All in favor of the confirming bylaw, please. Contrary? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Excellent. Staff, thank you.